So welcome. Today we're going to talk about being triggered, and when we're triggered, what are the steps we use to return to a place of centeredness or groundedness?
That seems like such an important topic these days. I'm hearing lots of people talk about being triggered and even resent being accused of being triggered.
Yes. Nobody wants to hear someone say, "Are you triggered?"
Yeah, it's not a compliment.
It's triggering to hear that.
So we want to dig into this a little bit about what you can actually do when you do notice that you're actually feeling a strong emotional response, aka triggered.
Yeah, definitely. So this is good timing for me. A few weeks ago, some friends and I were in Whistler, and we were going out for a night of some fun and some dinner. And we went to a restaurant and talked to the hostess and said, can we get a seat? And, she said, "Oh, we're pretty busy right now. You'll have to come back in 45 minutes. We looked and we could see quite a few empty tables. And so I just said, "Well, so you want to put our name on a list and then, we'll come back?" She says, "No, we don't do reservations. We won't take your name." So I found that a bit confusing. And so I said, "Okay, I'm confused. So when we come back, how will we know we have a seat? Like, what if other people show up?" And she's like, "Well, that's the way we do it." Mm-hmm. So I thought about it for a second, and I said, could we just sit then at one of the empty tables and just have a drink and wait? If we're going to have to wait out there, could we just wait here? She was quite annoyed by that and said, "Fine." And she grabbed these menus and walked us over to a table and sat us down. So once my friends and I sat down, we were all fairly triggered, thinking, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in these situations, it's really easy to think the person is the problem. Mm-hmm. She's the issue. She didn't behave appropriately or whatever. And the first thing that is important to note, it's not so much what's happening outside of you. There is an event, but it's really what's going on the inside. So if I said, "Jeff, what were you thinking and feeling about her?"
Yeah, I guess I was feeling frustrated, and I was thinking that she was rude as I was thinking about her.
Mm-hmm.
Saying she's rude, and she's violating the customer service, rules of restaurant, and and when you're in the service industry, like, customer's always right, or help the customer.
Right.
She's violating those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when we often have really strong feelings, when something is not matching the way we believe it should be. But the next piece is, what inside of me and my personal history is connecting with this situation? So is there any connection, Jeff, to you personally with this? I know you're saying how restaurant staff are supposed to be, but...
Yeah, so for me, if I move inward and reflect on my past and notice a frustration around an experience like this, I grew up in a restaurant, basically. My parents owned a family restaurant. So my first 15 or 16 years of life was in the restaurant industry. And I was definitely taught there that customer's always right. Whatever's going on inside of you, put on a happy face and go out there and present your best self, So be on good behavior all the time. The customers are the reason we have a business.
Right.
They pay our bills.
Right. In other words, your feelings don't matter. Put on that happy face.
Yes.
So this is a perfect example of your experience. And everything that you lived through, she's violating. Mm-hmm. Everything you were taught and expected to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. That's the perfect storm, so to speak, situation where we have stronger feelings. Yeah. So.
Well, and I do have a bit of a pushback on this, because as I've done quite a bit of personal development work, and regularly hear them say, "Well, what's your part? Like, look at yourself." And there's a part of me that's been fought that along the way of like, so they're doing something, I get it, it's real, but you want to put it on me and ignore them.
Right.
Basically put my head in the sand, it's all about me. And I found that a struggle along the way.
Yeah. And that's why I think the point where people say, "Excuse me, it is out there, it is them," and so on. Well, so long as you keep that perspective, then you're going to want them or the situation to change. Mm-hmm. And how much luck do we have with that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, even if I want them to change, like, it's not easy to do, is it? And,
No.
And we've known through lots of experiences in my life, wanting someone else to change, this doesn't make it happen.
No.
And then I get more frustrated.
Exactly. So the odds of that waitress cheering up because you want her to, and you maybe point out that she's being rude, the odds are pretty low, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for us coming more into balance, we want to focus on what we do have control of. And how we can rebalance ourselves, knowing it is about what's going on in the inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another thing that happens in these situations, so when I was triggered, my friends and I at that point lost track of what we really wanted.
Ah, yes.
And so now we're focusing on complaining about the situation, opposed to having fun and connecting and enjoying ourselves. So that's another challenge that happens when we're triggered. We lose track of that.
And that, I think, is maybe the biggest downfall. When we don't see that we're triggered and we focus on the outside, we lose track of what matters to us. And in a sense, we forfeit it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a good conversation. Maybe it's a fun evening. Maybe it's being understood in a situation. We lose that. So really important to know how to move yourself out of a place of being triggered. So the steps that we offer are...
Yeah, one, noticing.
Yeah.
Where are you focusing? And bring the focus back onto yourself.
Yeah.
Usually we're focusing outward on the person's behavior or the circumstance. So we want to bring it back to us.
Yeah. And then notice your thoughts and feelings. Jeff had lots of thoughts and feelings about how waitress or staff should be and the feelings that go with that. And then the next step is to look for, see if you can connect with how this relates to your own personal experience. What is it that's really inside of you that's getting, in a sense, linked to this current situation?
Yeah, and I want to just make a note here on this third step that, it's not about judging yourself negatively.
Right.
Like, you have these past experiences or early conditioning, and so those feelings that are arising now make perfect sense. It's not wrong.
Right.
This is natural, and we just need to notice this is what's happening with us so we can start seeing the root of what's going on within ourselves.
Yeah. So stay out of judging yourself if you can, because it will only compound the situation. You'll now feel bad about yourself, which doesn't really help you feel more in balance.
Yeah, that's right. And then lastly, once you've gone through those first three steps, returning to refocusing on what is it you really wanted before you were triggered.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is something you can control again. You can put your focus back onto that.
And as you practice these steps, you'll get better and better at them. You'll be able to move through them much more quickly, so you get to that last step of remembering what you wanted. And so we really encourage people, if you want support in learning these skills, a little bit of practice, our Inner Balance course is a great place for you to practice and get the support to build up the skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So in closing, I'm just going to say the four steps again. Notice where you're focusing and bring your attention back to you.
Yeah.
Number 2, recognize what are you thinking and feeling. Number 3, reflect on this feeling and see if it's familiar and how does it link to your past. And then number 4, refocus on what you really wanted before you were triggered.
And we also want to acknowledge that sometimes what gets triggered is a really painful memory. Maybe it's tied into a trauma, a big loss. And so that really is about healing, which is much more than what we're talking about today, but is what we cover in our other programs like the Discovery or the Inner Peace program. Well, that's it for today.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.